BVHC, the frequency.
Good morning, Boulder County. It's Wednesday, March 18th. I'm your host, Shay Castle, and this is The Frequency, a weekly local podcast covering the news, events, and voices shaping the Boulder Valley. This podcast is made possible by listeners and local businesses. You can sponsor an episode of The Frequency. Reach our growing audience of highly engaged listeners. Email boulderfrequency@gmail.com. Today, we'll hear from Erika Mahoney, a Boulder-born journalist and daughter of Kevin Mahoney, one of the 10 people killed in the King Soopers shooting that took place 5 years ago this week. We want to give plenty of time and space for that conversation. So let's get through the headlines quickly. Here they are. Boulder will seek a new operator for its license plate cameras after community pushback, the city announced March 13th. Boulder's contract with Flock expires this month. Longmont, Denver, and other cities have ended or scaled back their Flock contracts after public concerns over security and the sharing of data with federal immigration authorities. An existing agreement with Flock has been amended to allow Boulder to cancel its contract with 30 days' notice, with no financial penalties. The surprise announcement said a competitive bidding process will begin this month. The city is also working to establish a task force of data and technology experts to guide Boulder's policies. 30 Flock cameras currently operate on arterial roadways in Boulder. Listen to past reporting on Flock on the Frequency's February 18th and March 4th episodes, or at patreon.com/BoulderFrequencyPod. Longmont okayed 3 agreements that will eventually bring a new transit hub and college campus at First and Main Streets, one of the city's largest redevelopment deals in recent history. The City of Longmont and Front Range Community College will jointly pursue and fund plans for a downtown campus, with RTD and the state of Colorado pitching in a combined $20 million to build a bus station and 5-story, 600-space parking garage. Read more from the city and the Longmont Times Call at links in our show notes. Local municipalities cannot regulate noise from regional airports, a court ruled recently in upholding a dismissal of Superior's lawsuit against Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. The town is evaluating next steps, including further escalation to the state Supreme Court, officials said in a press release. One part of Superior's lawsuit, related to lead fuel, lives on, with the appellate court reversing an earlier dismissal. That portion of the case will return to district court for further consideration. Find that full story from the Daily Camera. Lyons will elect a new mayor and 6 trustees next month. Ballots are being mailed this week. The Lyons Recorder has questionnaires from each of the candidates, plus summaries of local forums. Find those at the links in our show notes. Colorado has purchased more than 3,000 acres next to the Eldora Ski Resort to protect critical wildlife corridors and expand hunting and fishing. Toland Ranch has been privately owned since the late 1800s. The property allows access to the ski area and a mountain bike trail. That access will continue unabated, Colorado Sun reported. The purchase will be funded by revenue from hunting and fishing licenses and the Colorado Lottery.
Denny Stong, Nevin Stanisic, Ricky Olds, Trelona Bartkowiak, Suzanne Fountain, Terry Leiker, Kevin Mahoney, Lynn Murray, Jody Waters, and Officer Eric Talley.
5 years ago, 10 people were killed in a mass shooting at King Soopers in South Boulder. The gunman would go on to be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Today, we are joined by Erika Mahoney, daughter of Kevin Mahoney, whose name you heard just a moment ago, along with those of 9 other people who died at the grocery store on March 22nd, 2021. A Boulder-born journalist, Erika produced an 8-part podcast about losing her father that day and the grief and healing that followed. Senseless debuted in June 2025. As the 5-year anniversary of the tragedy approaches, Erika sat down to talk about how the podcast evolved her grief and her life. Here she is.
Hi, I'm Erika Mahoney, and I'm a journalist, a mom, and a survivor. My dad was one of the 10 people killed in the King Soopers mass shooting in 2021, and that changed my life completely. I ended up using my background in journalism to produce a podcast about life after a mass shooting that honors my dad and the other 9 lives taken so senselessly. The podcast is called Senseless. And it's just really evolved my life and my understanding of what it is to be human.
How did it producing the podcast and kind of, making this narrative and presenting your grief in this very public way, how did that change your healing process?
It changed it so much. I don't think I ever imagined doing a project like this. Right. I certainly did not imagine doing something like this in those first initial years after the shooting. What ended up happening was my family moved back to the Boulder area in 2024. And at that time, things were moving forward with the trial and the court proceedings were ramping up. And it was this moment of, is this finally going to go to trial? Because there was a major delay. I just remember going to these events, sitting in the courtroom and doing the anniversary with everyone who was affected by the shooting and realizing that there were these incredible people all around me who had incredible stories from this one single incident. And as a journalist, I wanted to be the one to tell those stories. It ended up being incredibly healing for me. It was really challenging. It was really emotional, and it was a lot of hard work. But I think what it allowed me to do is get it out of my body, to digest it in the way that I know best, which is through journalism. And like I said, grief demands to be processed. So if you're a painter, maybe you would turn to art to process your grief. In my case, being a journalist, I turned to the craft of storytelling. And I'm so glad that this audio documentary, if you will, exists in the world because, the news cycle is so fast and so wild now that we tend to move on from big stories quickly without giving them the full attention that they deserve. And so this podcast, Senseless, was really about telling the story of the long shadow of gun violence that we don't always hear about.
I loved your exploration of the concept of safety in the podcast. And I'm so curious, how did you regain your sense of safety? How did your relationship with the concept of safety change? How has it continued to change?
Growing up, I was in 3rd grade when the shooting at Columbine High School happened, which, isn't far from Boulder, from my house and my elementary school. And that was so devastating. I think that was probably the start of me feeling, and I was so young, I was 9. That was the start of me feeling like something really terrifying can happen in a place where I feel safe. And, we were told that would never happen again, but it was the start of so many horrific mass shootings in this country. And life trudged forward, and this problem seemed to just keep crossing paths with my life and everyone's lives. My mom's student was killed in the mass shooting at the movie theater in Aurora. That was so hard on our family. In 2019, I was working as a journalist at the NPR station here in California, and I covered a mass shooting at the Gilroy Garlic Festival live for NPR. And that was that really shook my sense of safety. I felt really terrified after that to go into fairs and big outdoor gatherings. And then, the pandemic happened and that just shut everything down and we were in our homes. And I'll never forget having a conversation with my mom. And I said, well, at least with more people home and less people out in public spaces, there have been less mass shootings. 2 weeks after that conversation, and she agreed with me. And 2 weeks after that conversation, she was calling me about an active shooter at King Soopers and that dad was there. It's like, despite all of that happening throughout my life, I still never thought it would happen to our family. I was completely crushed. I mean, I was frozen. I couldn't leave the house. I was pregnant. I remember the first time my husband and I went grocery shopping after the incident, and I was actually like hiding behind one of the shelves. And just to think back, and I just want to give that younger version of Erika a hug because, man, those were some tough days. Like my nervous system was off the charts. You just think about so much life like loss. Like I couldn't go to the farmer's market. I couldn't enjoy these things. I couldn't go to the movies. I was so terrified. I was particularly terrified of going to a grocery store and like lingering too long in the parking lot because that's where my dad was. And so in the trauma brain, I'm thinking, get in and get to the back of the store because my dad was returning a shopping cart, or how for years, like I would just leave the shopping cart by my car and I would feel so bad, like I was being a bad Samaritan, but I just couldn't return the shopping cart because I thought, I'm vulnerable now. And it took a lot of work to get over that fear. My therapist helped me, through a visualization process. She would say, okay, when you go to the store, and you get into the front of the store, you're going to look for the exit signs and you're going to acknowledge that, of course, I will be feeling this way. Who wouldn't? And then to let it go. And that was the hardest thing, was to work on that, was to like, okay, I've done my due diligence. I've done the best I can. Some things really are out of our control. And I'm going to enjoy, pushing my beautiful 1-year-old daughter through the store and accepting all the cute conversations that I'm going to have with strangers about how cute she is. And what I think moved the needle on it was just practice and doing it over and over and over again until I felt like, okay, I can do this. When scary things happen and your sense of safety is broken, you want to become a hermit. And you want to hide away and you want to go in your cave. And I did that for so long. But there becomes a point in life where you're like, wait, now I'm losing time. I'm losing moments of joy. And I'm just going to go out and do it. And I'm going to be brave. And that was such a breakthrough for me because life started to get better then. And that came with some acceptance of surrendering to what may be. And we go through our lives, we never know what's going to happen. But if we're constantly worrying about it, then we're ruining all the good moments that we are walking through day to day.
Again, your podcast did a wonderful job of exploring how difficult the word strong can be when applied to survivors of trauma. What's your relationship with that word today?
Today, I feel wonderful about the word strong. In the beginning, I found it to be really overwhelming. I'll never forget standing in front of the beautiful memorial that formed in front of King Soopers almost immediately after the shooting. And I went maybe 2 or 3 days later. And I just remember standing in front of that beautiful, it was like a piece of art with all of these messages. And it was so surreal to see my dad's name everywhere that I looked. That it was like part of me wanted to just fall to my knees and scream out like, my dad, that's my dad. My dad was killed in this. But just in that moment, I was more part of the community and witnessing this beautiful memorial. And in addition to seeing my dad's name everywhere, I saw the word strong everywhere. And I just felt like I can't be strong. I don't want to be strong. Why should I have to be strong? And people say, you're so strong. You don't have a choice. It's not a choice. I'm doing the best I can. I'm still alive and I'm here. And I'm not strong. I'm actually crying in the corner in the fetal position, unable to go to the farmer's market. That's the truth. So as time went on, I started to just kind of feel like that. I kind of felt like we label these communities, Boulder strong, Uvalde strong, Boston strong, in that way. And is it really like the best choice of word? But as time has gone on, I do respect the word strong because it's strength and love. It's strength and showing up. It's saying like, you can do this. And it's kind of like the word resilient. I used to really not like it when people would say, "Oh, you're so resilient." For some reason in my head, when I thought of the word resilient previously, it was like a brick wall. Like you're strong and you're a brick wall. And only recently did I learn resilient means to flow with life. And it kind of took on this like rubber band energy in my mind. And now I love the word resilient because it's not saying you're always like strong and whatnot, but it's that you bend and you flow. And I'm starting to love the word strong in a similar way that I related to the word resilient. But I think for survivors, it's a really complex word. And if you're having a conversation with a survivor or with someone who's experiencing loss, think critically about the word strong when you use it.
Is there anything else I should be asking you? Is there anything else you want to share about your dad or your family or with the community? I know you no longer live in Boulder, but obviously you'll always have connection here.
Big, big love to Boulder. What a beautiful, beautiful community who showed up for us. And no community is ever prepared for this type of tragedy. But I think that our community did a really beautiful job in responding. I'm so grateful. 5 years, wow, it just feels surreal that it's been 5 years. Like I said, this really does feel like it still happened yesterday for me. Life has changed so much, and I really hope that on this 5th anniversary, there's time to just pause and reflect and honor the people we were and honor the people we are now. I honor my dad on the death anniversary. I honor all of the victims, and that is a more sad day. But also there is the knowing that the Boulder community held us, showed up for us, continues to do so. And it's a somber day, but a somber day filled with love. I've learned in life that grief and joy exist at the same time, and life and death exist at the same time. I was pregnant when this happened, so I gave birth 3 months after the shooting. So I really had to navigate like life and death and grief and joy all at once. And my therapist said maybe a year later, like 2 things can be true at once. You can be extremely sad and extremely happy at the same time. And that was so freeing of a message. My friend David has this lovely metaphor for grief, which is that grief never shrinks, but life grows around it. I think that's so beautiful because it doesn't minimize the grief. It just shows that you continue to grow around it. And in that, it does start to feel a little bit more like something you can wrap your hands around. This one incident affected so many people in so many different ways. So if you were there that day, or you live in that area, or you knew someone who was killed, whatever it may be, you shop there, I'm sending you so much love. My dad is sending you so much love. And love is stronger than hate. And I'm proud. I'm proud of myself for moving forward, and I'm proud of the community. And just big appreciation. And, for the 5th anniversary, if anyone wants to go honor my dad, go take a beautiful hike and pick up any litter that you see along the way that is 100% honoring my dad, Kevin Mahoney. And I'm sure he'll be shining down on you.
Thank you again to Erika Mahoney. Listen to Senseless wherever you find your podcast. You can find the full version of our interview at patreon.com/BoulderFrequencyPod. Attend the Boulder Strong Day of Remembrance on Sunday, March 22nd, from 4 to 4:30 p.m. at the Museum of Boulder, 2205 Broadway. Next week, Frequency co-founder Jeff Rozic interviews award-winning storyteller and National Geographic photographer Andy Mann ahead of his April 23rd show at Chautauqua. Before you go, here's one more thing.